I'm going to tell you guys a story about when I arrived at the Federal Correctional Institution at F.C.I. Fort Worth. In that prison, they have a hospital. You know, they got guys that have been locked up since, shit, I don't know, 80s, 70s, whatever. Old men, you know what I'm saying? Some of them young men. Some of them are just amputees and people with medical conditions that have to be housed in a hospital setting. So my job there was ICA. That's what my job title was. So I was an inmate care attendant. My job was to like get them out of bed, put them on a wheelchair, bring them to the nurse, take them back to their room, arrange their meals and hand out their meals to these guys, along with a whole host of other stuff we did, you know. Clean their room, empty their trash. We were also like the prison ambulance. When somebody was down on the yard, you know, me and another ICA would run out there with the stretcher, load them up, and bring them to the hospital, you know. So this is how I met Mr. Salvatore Merlino, who was the underboss of the Philadelphia crime family, La Cosa Nostra. He was up under Nicky Scarfo. The thing is, after being there a day or two, another Italian inmate from the East Coast, he was either an associate or some kind of a soldier connected with the Gambino family. So being a soldier, you know, I'm not saying nothing bad about soldiers, but he wasn't no underboss or consigliere, you know what I mean? So he's more like muscle. So his brain probably is not as sharp as Mr. Molino. So one day I'm working in there and he said, "Hey kid, you're new here, what's your name?" I said, "Maldonado, sir." And he said, "Oh, I'm Italian too." Mr. Molino heard that shit. He said, "That ain't no Italian name. That's some sort of Spanish name. You don't know the language. I know the language." So, you know, I tripped out on that. I walked up to Mr. Molino. I said, "Where you from, sir?" And he said, "I'm from Sicily, pal." And I said, "Oh yeah? I heard the Sicilianos and the Napolitanos don't really like each other too much." And he said, "Oh yeah? Whoever told you that took you for a ride, kid. I knew John Gotti. He was from Naples. I liked him good." So then I said, "How about Lucky Luciano? Where was he from?" "He was from Sicily." I said, "How about Al Capone?" "He was from Naples, kid. And look, that's all I'm gonna say about that there. I ain't gonna get 20 more fucking years for something come out my mouth from you fucking feds." So Mr. Merlino was a real tough guy. As the days went along, he didn't even call me Maldonado, you know what I'm saying? He would refer to me as marinero, like that Italian sauce. That's just in the nature of these old mobster guys doing time. They're real cranky, you know, and they're used to having it their way, so they pretty much always cranky and complaining about shit. One time, Mr. Merlino was standing at his door, you know, and he can't really eat regular food. He's like on a special diet, but nevertheless, he wanted to chop it up with somebody. He seen me walking by. He said, "Hey, Marinero, what's for dinner tonight?" I said, "Enchiladas, Mr. Merlino. You better come get some. Them shits are good." And he said, "Man, them shits ain't no good. If you think them shits is good, you institutionalized, man. I went to Acapulco with John Gotti. We had some real enchiladas over there." So this is the type of mindset Mr. Molino and them guys is coming from. But they were real cool cats, you know what I'm saying? I really treasure them in my heart. So that's the type of mentality Mr. Molino and some of these old LCN mafiosos have. Even though they've been locked up for decades, you know, they still got big money out there. They're just unsatisfied with the service in jail, you know. A lot of times I used to like to duck in their room and hide from the man so I wouldn't have to do any hard work. You know, like carry boxes, and it gets hot in Texas sometimes, you know, and humid in that area. So I wasn't really trying to do no hard work, and I would duck in these old men's rooms. You know, I had a lot of good buddies that in different rooms. You know, some were bank robbers, some, you know what I'm saying. Mr. Merlino would tell me the old crime stories of New York and Philly and all that stuff. He would tell me how boxing has been rigged since the 50s. You know, he would just, you know, I go down memory lane with these cats. One day I was reading this National Geographic and I seen a picture of a yacht. I said, "Hey, Mr. Merlino, this is a badass yacht, ain't it?" He looked at me and said, "Yeah, but you can't do nothing with it. What you want to look at it for? I got like 5 of them things in Jersey. I can't ride it. I ain't going to be looking at it." "Man, Marinero, you institutionalized, man." So So that was the type of thing he liked to fuck with me about, you know. I would help him with his commissary slip. And I'm filling it out for him. You know, he was real cool, you know what I mean? You know, if it was winter time, he'd be like, man, put yourself down some sweats and some new Nikes. I'd be like, man, I'm cool, I'm straight. Mr. Molino said, man, just put it in there, man. It's my Christmas gift to you. So, you know, he'd look out for me. Because I really didn't get no visits way out there. Didn't really have too much chips coming in, besides what I hustled in there. One day he was like, hey, Marinero, put down whatever you need. After I finished helping him with his list, you know what I'm saying? He said, put down what you need. I said, I'm all right now, Mr. Molino. He said, man, ain't you a Mexican? I said, yeah. He said, all right then, put some stuff down in there, man, so you can make some tacos and bring me one. So he had a good heart, you know. He'll fuck with you and put you down a little bit, but that was his way of, you know, showing you some love, you know. One time, Mr. Molino asked me, he said, where you from, Marinero? I said, I'm from Santa Monica, California. It's in Los Angeles, Mr. Molino. He said, oh, you's a Sureño. I said, yeah. He said, I like you. You guys don't mess around with the Mulians. And you know, I took that to say that he understands that the homies don't play, that we're a serious group, you know what I mean? And you know, that's prison politics. Mulians is a derogatory Italian word, much like the homies use mayate. And it's interesting because it kind of doesn't sound the same, but it has some of the same consonants and vowels. It starts with an M. But I ain't saying nothing derogatory about my black brothers. I grew up with a lot of them. But prison politics, it is what it is. I didn't make this world. I just reside in it and abide by it. And what it is, that's what it is, you know. But I took that as a compliment from Mr. Merlino because he wanted to get to know me better. You know, that means that he probably was liking me now, you know, and he wanted to know more about me. So, Mr. Molino, I'm going to tell you another story about Mr. Molino. He had a cellie that he didn't really like, you know what I mean? And one time his cellie, for one reason or another, he went out of his room that he shared with Mr. Molino. Now keep in mind, they have a toilet in there, but he went out of his room and he went to this area called the bus stop. Now the bus stop is like a dormitory setting. You got like maybe 12, 13 bunks in there. And that's for guys that aren't clean, that don't shower, you know what I'm saying? For guys that are newly, brought into the hospital area, they have to first start there before they get a room. He went over there for some reason. Mr. Molino's cellie, he skipped out of the room, went to the bus stop, and took his shit over there in that dorm we call the bus stop. You know, he came back and tried to get in his room, but some black fool on a wheelchair came flying down the hallway. Caught him right before he went in his door. And he said, hey man, hey Spadero, why you do that shit for, man? And he said, do what? He said, man, you went in the bus stop and shit on the floor in the restroom. And I'm doing like, I'm helping these dudes with some laundry, so I'm sitting like right across the hallway over there, and I'm watching all this shit. So when he said that, I started busting up, man. He said, I didn't take no shit on the floor. What are you talking about? He said, come on, man. How you gonna lie to me? I was in there, man. I watched you go in the restroom and come back out. I had just used the restroom. When you went in there and came out, there was shit all over the floor. Why the hell you do that for, man? He said, that wasn't me. That was probably Merlino. You know, he tried to blame it on his cellie. And Mr. Merlino heard that shit. He came right out. He opened the door. He said, you know, he moved kind of slow. He sit, you know, he come out. He said, what? Who said my name? What'd you say about me? And his cellie said, oh, nothing, Sal. Go back in the room. So Mr. Molino said, what? You better keep my name out your mouth, punk. So then this guy told Mr. Molino, he said, oh, fuck you, Sal. Go back to your fucking mafia. Mr. Molino said, fuck you, punk. Go back to your mother's cunt. And at that point, I was busting up laughing, man, because you can always tell a street cat by the way they by the way they talk, you know what I mean? By the way they smash and roast you, you know what I mean? They got a mouth from the gutter because the streets are connected to the gutter. And so, he from the ghetto, you know what I mean? This other motherfucker, he sounded like a lame, talking about, why don't you go back to your fucking mafia? Ha! I remember there was a book floating around about the Philly mob. It was a floater. You know, a floater is a book that the homie read it, he passed it on to you, and you pass it on to another homie. That's a floater. So this book, I remember reading one page out of it, and it was saying about Mr. Molino. His nickname was Chucky, you know what I'm saying? That's how he was known in the Philly mob. They had murdered some cats, and they were talking about these old murders, and one of them was about a dude named Salvatore that was a member of their crime family. He had actually proposed to Mr. Molino's daughter, but then reneged and didn't follow through. So in the book, I remember they said that Chucky was griping about this 6 years later, and the author said it was as if though Chucky wanted to unbury him out of the grave and shoot him all over again. So that's it. And when they used the word gripe, you know what I'm saying, I said, that's Mr. Molino, you know. But he got heart, you know, he loved his kids. He used to speak to them on the phone on a regular basis, you know. Good man, Mr. Molino, shout out. So those are a couple of little quick stories of how I met Mr. Molino and our little interactions, you know. And with that, I'm out, you know, stay up. Chicano power.